So the idea of there being morality without God is a pretty common discussion that I see between theists and atheists, because many theists say, well, without a God, without some objective moral lawgiver, how can you have morals? Everything would be subjective, would it not? And there's a lot to say about this, and I'm going to get in a few points of just what I think. But yeah, it is a very widely discussed thing. I'm sure you've heard plenty of arguments, but here's a few of my things. The first issue we have is establishing who this lawgiver is. You have to prove that there is a God, prove that a God exists to give objective moral laws, and then which one? Is it the Christian God? Is it the Muslim God? Is it Zeus? You got to make sure you prove which one is right, and then you got to get the right interpretation of the right God, because different denominations of different religions, like Christianity with its thousands of denominations, have different interpretations on what this God is. So you got to get the right interpretation of the right God, and that requires arguably a different conversation of proving that a God exists, proving that your God exists. But I mean, it's obvious that these objective moral laws, especially the big ones like don't take people's lives, don't steal, these usually agreed upon, big laws, have to come from some objective moral lawgiver, because how could they come about any other way? And God of the Gaps is my favorite, not favorite argument, because just because you don't understand how something works or how something got here or how something ended up the way that it is, that does not mean you just get to plug your God into it. But we can also kind of explain how morals can come about without there being a God. We can see that societies work better when they're working together. When everyone's chipping in, helping each other out, caring for one another, everything tends to run better. And that works better for the society and the individuals in it, including you. And it would just kind of make sense, even just like at a base level. I don't want to get robbed. You don't want to get robbed. So wouldn't it make sense if we create and or support a society where theft is illegal and criminalized, and therefore there's a deterrent against it to protect us from these things? So it's not just about, looking out for everyone else. There's personal gain to be had by playing nice with the other kids. And then we get to what is harmful. Now, like I said, there are some heavy hitters, theft, taking lives, things like that, but then there are some odd ones, laws that vary from city to city, culture to culture. Don't drive this way, don't do this in this building, don't drop a moose from a helicopter. But some of the bigger ones, some of the more agreed upon ones, I feel like could just come from a basic understanding of, hey, if I get stabbed, that's probably going to hurt. So if I stab somebody else, it's probably going to hurt. And then we get into it. Any emotional or psychological or physical pain caused by someone is pain, and there's an understanding of that pain and the detriment that it causes, and oftentimes putting yourself in that person's shoes and saying, oh, wouldn't feel good to be that person. I don't want this stuff to happen to me. Why would I do it to other people? And especially when loss of life could be a possibility. Taking someone's life is arguably the worst thing you could do to someone. Just ending the only existence that they know they have, sending them off to maybe whatever afterlife there might be, or to just oblivion. So we can understand why there are things that are just harmful and they don't work, and why we would put things in place not only to protect others, but to protect ourselves. And it's possible that's part of how basic human empathy evolved. It's just seeing oh, maybe none of us should stab each other, and the society will work just a little bit better. And then, of course, you get people saying, oh, well, all secular morals come from some religion or another, or some set of religious beliefs or another. And sure, you can say that, but I don't believe that's the starting point. Unless you can prove there's a god or some kind of deity passing down the laws of this religion, it kind of seems like the morals and stuff that we plugged into these religions are from secular morals that we had already figured out through some of the processes that I've explained. And of course, at the end of the day, you do have to take into consideration the fact that there are atheists who are wonderful people. There are atheists who are terrible people. There are theists, Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, whatever, that are wonderful people. And there are theists, or people from different religions, or just theists in general, who are terrible people. You see it on both sides of the line, both sides of the argument. And then, of course, you could always get into the whole, and I pick on Christianity more than anything just because it's the area of my focus. But you read the Bible, your objective, wonderful, moral lawgiver in the Bible condones things like slavery and child abuse and misogyny and genocide. And I've seen Christians sitting here trying to defend those things, trying to defend their objective moral lawgiver. It's like I literally have conversations with people that defend the children that were destroyed, lives taken, I'm not allowed to say certain words on certain platforms, whose lives were taken during some of God's genocidal events in the Bible. People defend that. But then, of course, we have the response of, well, who are you to judge God? I don't know. Someone with some kind of secular moral system that seems to be better than your God, with aspects that seem to work better than a system under which your God operates. But then, of course, it's all still subjective, is it not? Yes and no. Now, I could, and I will, give the petty argument of, well, even if there is an objective moral lawgiver, those laws are still subjective because it's that lawgiver's subjective opinion and whatnot. I don't usually stand on that argument. I agree with it, but I don't usually use it. It's a little bit petty. But I would honestly agree. There is no objective moral laws. But it's not just about, oh, we can just do whatever we want. Or, taking people's lives is only bad because you say it's bad. No, it's a system that we've figured out over time. And kind of like how we've figured out how to make various baked goods, cookies, cupcakes, cakes. We didn't just figure it out. There was a process. There was an evolution, if you will, of different ideas and tests and looking at this and that. This didn't work. This did work. It's a whole process that got us to where we are. So yes, sure, there is no objective morality, but I do not think we could boil it down to, that's just your opinion, man. And of course, at the end of the day, this is still just a widely debated topic, a widely debated idea. And I don't really think there's any, I don't think you can give the best arguments and really shut the book even. I think it's just one of those where it's just going to kind of keep going. But if nothing else, I find it fun to talk about. I enjoy talking about this stuff. I enjoy talking about religion and stuff. I have a whole channel, page, whatever you're watching this on, dedicated to it. So, it's interesting to me. But yeah, ultimately, do we need a God? Do we need an objective moral lawgiver to give us morals? Since you haven't proven that such a being exists, it kind of looks to me like we already have pretty good morals without this God. You're kind of just trying to God of the gaps it and say we couldn't possibly have these morals without God, even though humans can still be terrible people. We're not the most moral, upstanding people, and our moral systems do get a little fuzzy. It's almost like there's not an objective source that we're getting it from. But yeah, I don't know. There's no evidence that I can see for a God. And there's pretty good evidence and pretty good understanding in a pretty logical way that we could get to where we are without a God. And then, of course, even if we don't know how we got this system, we're still not going to play God of the gaps and say, I don't understand it, therefore it has to have been from a God. It just doesn't work that way. So, at the end of the day, the opinion of some random dude on the internet who may or may not know what he's talking about. No, I'm sorry. I don't think we need help from your God or any God to figure out some kind of moral system. I think humans, much like with baked goods, have just kind of figured it out over time. And there's been work put into it, and there's been effort put into it. And I just don't think that we should just wipe all that away because well, surely humans couldn't do that. It has to be some magical being that I haven't even proven exists. It just, I don't know. Doesn't seem like it works.